So at 24,
At 20,
if she
yes.
if she upsets me, I can be like, hey, no, you get nothing.
You can do it if she doesn't upset you. You can do it for any reason. But if she's, how old is your kid?
She's 4.
Has she ever tried to murder you?
Not yet.
Okay. If she does, then you can disinherit her regardless of age. Yes,
Got
so
it.
keep that in mind. Give me a call.
Attempted murder. Gotcha.
Attempted murder.
That's what it is.
Is it grounds for
Like,
disinheritance?
hey, why are you trying to kill me?
Yeah.
No,
And-
you get nothing.
And stressing you out to death is not gonna work.
That's
So,
not
no.
that's not attempted murder.
No, it's not.
That's debatable. Don't you think it's debatable?
Hey, I'm Armando Leduc, producer, film actor, and owner of Leduc Entertainment. I've chosen a life off the beaten path and wanted to find others that are doing the same. Spaghetti on the Wall is a show based on all of the years that I've thrown spaghetti on the wall and nurtured what stuck. We will share fun stories, ideas, tips, tricks, and more. Welcome to Spaghetti on the Wall.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another episode of Spaghetti on the Wall, ladies and gentlemen. Max Ciolino is in the house. What's up, dude? I know, I got to say it like that.
Please.
Ciolino, but it's so much more fun. Ciolino.
Don't ever stop.
Right? What's up, Max?
Not a lot,
Good
man. How
to
you
see
doing
you.
this morning?
It's good, man. It's so funny. We were just talking about this before we started the show, but you know how the journey, how different it is from when we first met back in 2016 and what it's like now. And glad to have you on. So you're doing estate planning, attorney things, personal injury, and real estate. Is that correct?
So my firm does real estate. I do estate planning, successions, and personal injury.
Yeah.
And my business partner does business and real estate.
Do you watch that show, Succession?
I don't. I probably should. You know, I try not to bring my work home with me, and so I don't usually watch a lot of legal shows or read, legal dramas. They tend to stress me out more than anything. So,
What do you do to relax?
I
on?
just binge read the Harry Potter series a couple months ago.
Now, when you say read, are you reading it or are you listening to it on
Reading.
Audible?
Yeah, my lineup is basically I read fiction and I listen to nonfiction. So I'll put in a podcast or an audiobook on the way to work. Or while I'm doing the dishes or cooking.
Yeah.
But to wind down, I prefer, fantasy or sci-fi, sometimes like classic literature as well, classic fiction. But I definitely read those. I think I get more drawn into it with the book in my hand.
Right on.
Yeah.
So when people are looking for you, like when is it time to call you in to help them? Obviously with personal injury when you get hurt. But
yes,
like for successions and estate planning.
Yeah, I think with estate planning, that's the practice area that people kind of like they contemplate for a long time without ever actually making the plan, or they take a long time to get to making the plan.
Mm-hmm.
But it really depends on what you're worried about and where you are in life. So I think that most of my clients are either people with young children, and so they kind of have those thoughts like, what if something happens to me? What's going to happen to my kids? Well, create a document. That's the way you know what happens to your kids.
Right.
Especially if you're concerned about them inheriting everything that you've built over the course of your life when they reach 18. So if you've got, a 3-year-old and you and, if you and your spouse, or you alone, if it's just yourself, if something happens to you, a guardian will take over those assets until your 18th birthday or your kid's 18th birthday. But then when you make 18, you'll get it. And so if you think to yourself, what if my child got everything when they were 18? If that's scary to you, then make a document. If it's
that
not
is scary.
What
did we do when we were 18?
I just gave you a promotional pen. So
I
go
know,
ahead and
right?
call that
Yeah,
no.
for sure. Gee whiz.
So I think with estate planning, it's couples with young children or parents with young children are my primary clients there, and then also people who are kind of reaching a more advanced age and starting to think, who's going to be taking care of me if I have needs myself, or maybe it's just time to put something together so that I know where who's going to take control of my assets or how things are going to be split up based on my priorities when I pass.
How many percentage wise, how many people are really thinking about that? Not enough, obviously.
Well, let's just say that I probably do in between 5 and 10 successions per estate plan. So I would say more people are dying than have estate plan, so it's that's probably a little bit high, but for the most part, I think a lot of people don't have wills in place. And some people don't really need them, but I think that most people don't actually know what the background laws are. So for some people, what they want to happen is what will happen if they don't have a will. Great. But if you don't know what those laws are, then you don't know that. So maybe some education, and I've had people call in and say, this is what I want. And I'll be like, you can pay me to write that down for you, but that is what will happen. So if you want to see it in black and white, some of my clients just want to see it, great, let's do it. But if you don't do anything, that's what will happen too.
Okay, so talk to me. So there's estate planning and then there's succession. What's the difference?
You draft an estate plan while you're alive to instruct what will happen to your belongings when you pass away. And then also there are some, during your life decision making too. That's like powers of attorney, living will type stuff. A succession is once someone has passed away. It's the process of organizing their assets and distributing them to their heirs. So you don't have a succession until someone has passed away. Gotcha.
And so you hopefully all of that stuff is in writing. What happens when it's not?
So I think in Louisiana there are a couple of surprises. They don't apply in every case, but I do often hear people say like that's what would have happened if I didn't write this down. I'm like, yeah, that's so. But the long story short is you have community property and separate property. So community property is property you acquire during a marriage, with a spouse. It belongs to both of you. If you pass away and all you have is community property, your kids inherit what's called naked ownership over the property, which means that they are essentially the official owners of it, but they don't have the right to use it. They don't have the right to enjoy it. The rights to use and enjoy, which is also to profit from it, is called a usufruct, and that goes to the spouse. And so what happens is if, let's say, all you owned was a home and you had one kid and your spouse and community, your kid would inherit half of the home without the ability to live in the home and without the ability to rent out the home.
Because the other half belongs to the spouse.
The other half belongs to the spouse and full ownership. But the spouse also gets a usufruct, which means they can live in the home and they can rent out the home. And so a lot of times that works out pretty well because I assume you wouldn't want your child to, kick your wife out of the home or to rent out the home.
Right.
But what winds up happening is when you have mixed families, you might wind up having, a stepmom who has kind of all these rights over the home and kids of yours who are at odds with them, and it can lead to disputes.
Gotcha.
So you can kind of plan around those during your lifetime. Also, if you wind up having kids from different marriages, then you could have 25% of the home going to one kid who doesn't know the other kid, and through this complex naked ownership usufructuary ownership regime. And I just think that people don't understand that, and they don't know what their family members are going to do with that when they've died. So that's something that often surprises people. Another one is called forced heirship. You have a kid, right?
I do.
Okay. Did you know that you can't disinherit them? So
Disinherit?
Do you want to disinherit them?
I don't know what that means. It means cut them off?
It means you can't leave them out of your will. So if you wrote a will...
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you wrote a will that said everything to my lovely wife, that's actually not a valid will. There are some ways you can kind of finagle that to create something like that, but you actually can't leave your child out of your will unless they have reached the age of 24 and don't have any disabilities that affect their ability to manage their own affairs. So
at 24, if she upsets me, I can be like, hey, no. You get nothing.
You can do it if she doesn't upset you. You can do it for any reason. But if she's... How old is your kid?
She's 4.
Has she ever tried to murder you?
Not yet.
Okay. If she does, then you can disinherit her regardless of age. Yeah, so keep that in mind.
Give me a call. Attempted murder. Gotcha.
Attempted murder.
That's what it is.
Is a grounds for disinheritance.
Like, hey, why are you trying to kill me? No, you get nothing.
And stressing you out to death is not gonna work.
That's not attempted murder.
No, it's not.
That's debatable. Don't you think it's debatable?
I feel for you, Armando, but the law does not.
The law does not state overstress is attempted murder.
No.
You heard it here first, folks. That's funny. All right, so succession, real estate. Why that though? Why that as a focus?
Yeah. I think that for me, my 8-year-long journey in the practice of law has been trying to figure out what I like doing, what kind of clients I like working with, and what actually pays, because we are a business. And so when I first set up and we first met, I was trying to work in the business and nonprofit startup space. I quickly found, so I still work with nonprofits, not all the time, but often. I was never able to turn that into a profitable practice area, I think, for obvious reasons. I was working with people who had a dream, who were really just spectacular people, but most people in that space, or not most people, a lot of people in that space don't have the resources to hire an attorney and build this, this full-fledged corporation from the ground up. So I loved working with them. I still do it more as a hobby than anything, but it wasn't paying the bills. And then when I kind of started branching out, I was getting involved in all kinds of things that really affected my quality of life. So I think I've done 2 divorces. I've retired from divorcing. I don't do that anymore.
That's got to be stressful.
I didn't enjoy it at all. And one of the reasons was I think that I had a client who just really was not in a position to. There were no good outcomes for her, and so my job was really to just be like, here's how we minimize your damages and make this as quick as possible so that you can basically get nothing and move on. And that was just such a demoralizing and I was laying awake at night. I was thinking about her on the weekends, and like I just couldn't separate from that arrangement. And then so I was doing different practice areas and finding they were, not something I was good at, not something I liked. And then I found estate planning and successions really puts me in a position, especially where the things I'm best at are what is available to me. So those have a lot of client communication. I mostly am talking to my clients. Like most of my job is explaining to them what their options are, helping them figure out their best routes, and getting to meet new people all the time. They're fairly quick projects for the most part, so there's always new people in my office. I'm meeting people all over the place. I'm learning their incredible stories along the way, and getting an insight into, what they thought their lives would be like, and where they hope their lives are heading, and it's really just deep and inspiring stuff and meaningful stuff, and I just enjoy that work. So that's why I do that. And then also, like as a bonus, it does pay. So I'm like getting, paid to do something that I'm good at and that I enjoy doing. And it's been really rewarding to have found that for my firm.
Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Gotta love when you find the passion and it intersects with profit, right?
Yes. And we are a for-profit company, so it does have to do that.
So what's the goal here for the next 5 years for you?
That's something my business partner and I are spending a lot of time thinking about. We're in a position where we really do feel like we've found our stride. And for right now, it's him, myself, and we have a secretary. And so we're, kind of thinking, do we start hiring associates? Do we start hiring more support staff? Do we keep this really lean operation and just get more efficient with what we've got? I don't know where we're going to go next, but it's something that I'm feeling really optimistic about, because I think building this firm from nothing has been such a struggle, and it's always felt like we were trying to get by. But then at some point a few years ago, that really shifted from really just scratching through it to a whole world of options. And I think that, we can build whatever firm we want to from here. We just have to decide what that is,
right,
and commit to it. So yeah.
What keeps you up at night?
I've historically had trouble sleeping, so any number of things. But I don't lay awake at night for the most part. I don't lay awake at night feeling stressed out about my job. I think I lay awake at night because I have a lot of energy and I drink a lot of tea.
What kind of tea? Green tea?
Black tea? This is Earl Grey. So I do in the mornings I drink Earl Grey, and then on the weekends I drink some like more special like oolong or pu'er teas, something I ordered from China. Yeah.
Have you ever drank coffee?
Yes, and I quit drinking coffee a couple of years ago. For some reason, coffee hits that like anxiety nerve for me in a way that tea doesn't. So I could drink tea all day, But if I drink coffee, like I'm like headed for a panic attack quick. So I was just like, coffee's bad for Max.
Huh.
We're gonna stick to the
I did
tea.
too. Well, I guess I went through a phase where it was like, coffee was just, driving me to like that just like panicky mode.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I just kind of drink one cup, and it's got to be weak. Like it's got to be, when people drink my coffee, they're like, what is this? I'm like, it's coffee.
I think
Like,
something's wrong with
coffee.
your water.
That's not coffee.
No, I get it,
So maybe I need to change. Maybe, maybe some tea is more,
a little more steady.
more steady and keeps the energy up.
Yeah.
You like, is oolong like green tea?
It's like a roasted green tea. Yeah, it has caffeine in it, similar to green tea.
Cool.
I was finding that oolong wasn't quite enough of a kick. So like somewhere between like coffee is too much of a kick, oolong not enough, and then we landed on Earl Grey. So
Heard.
But in like the practice of law, it really can be a stressful job, and I feel like anxiety is something that so many attorneys struggle with, and so just like finding out like ways to minimize that, so that I'm not again like. I really hope that I would never be in a courtroom about to freak out, or like on the phone with another attorney about to just feeling all that tension and fueling that with coffee, because I think that just makes things really really volatile and can harm your client. So like I've been in situations where I've been overly, aggressive or hostile towards an opposing counsel. It's actually normally been in the reverse, where they've been aggressive or hostile towards me, and really it kind of sours that relationship and makes it to where the attorneys aren't able to put their clients first because they're too busy feeling like hurt or miffed with each other, or feeling like they can't talk to the other person, and how are we going to sort this out peacefully?
Why are lawyers so anxious? Why so much anxiety?
I don't think I'm the person to ask that, just because I'm not a mental health professional. But I'll say, it is or can be a high stakes, high pressure job. It's and especially from like lawyer television, you can see that it's often like a controversy based job. A lot of times there are winners and losers. There's an adversarial nature to the communication. You're not collaborating, you're fighting in a lot of litigation context. I think that's why I do so well in estate planning and successions, because I'm not built for that level of fight. I find that to be really stressful for me. But in succession, sometimes I will have to do that. And I've kind of, again, found that when I'm making sure that I've taken care of myself, I'm not jacked up on coffee, I'm getting good sleep, I'm exercising, eating well, that I can handle that with stride and poise. But if I'm not taking care of myself, then that becomes a really destructive process for me. I will say that when it comes to controversy, so in successions, you're fighting with other siblings or other cousins or family members, and that can all get really emotional. Your clients are really upset. It's not about the result, it's about the relationships, and that can get really negative or really difficult. When it comes to personal injury, who you're fighting with is an insurance company, and like right. I have no qualms with that whatsoever. There's no emotional side. I just think my clients are in a situation to be exploited, denied, taken advantage of, and it's my job to protect them from that experience, and I don't feel that those qualms about the controversy in the personal injury context.
So what would you be doing if you weren't a personal injury attorney, or an attorney, I should say? Sure.
The things that I would be doing if I wasn't an attorney are really the things that I do as an attorney, but more as a hobby. So I write fiction.
Do you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every Friday night. Today's Friday, right? Every Friday night I go to an organization called Shut Up and Write. It's at Mojo's on Ferret.
Cool.
Yeah, we there's a 1 hour like social period, and then a 1 hour quiet writing time, and then another social period, and then we go home.
What? Yeah, that's awesome.
No, it's neat. Yeah. So I'm working on a novel right now. It'll probably take me forever, but I just love writing, so I just get to do that. The other passion of mine is environmental advocacy. So I've always been an advocate. earlier in my career, I was more focused on education. I kind of pivoted to environmentalism for a variety of reasons, but I'm actually currently a board member of the Alliance for Affordable Energy. Have you heard of them?
No. Tell me about it.
So the Alliance for Affordable Energy, and I actually have some like heavy feelings right now because I just notified them that I was going to be stepping down from the board. But that's because it's not working in my life right now. It's just the board responsibility specifically. But the Alliance for Affordable Energy is a consumer watchdog. They monitor what Entergy is asking for in terms of compensation from ratepayers. So your bills have rates added to it for maintenance or infrastructure or whatever, and the Alliance is making sure that those are fair requests and fair amounts, and advocating on your behalf to keep your costs down along the way. So they serve as a consumer watchdog. They also are often advocating for greener, more renewable resources or less toxic, less fossil fuel based resources for our power supply. But more than anything, the Alliance for Affordable Energy is like the most impressive team I've ever seen in my life. Like from the director to the staff to the board, they are just rock stars. And I've learned so much, and I've been so fortunate to see them build this organization from I think there were 2 employees when I got started, and now there are 11. I've only been on the board for 5 years.
Wow.
They have ballooned, and their efforts have been so much more effective and so much more expansive this whole time. And when I was realizing it wasn't working anymore, I was like, how am I going to walk away from the coolest team, the most impressive organization I've ever seen? And what it came down to is I felt myself pulling back, and I was like, an organization like that cannot have a board member quiet quitting on them. They need people who are all in. And I'm like, right now for the Alliance, I can be a volunteer. I can tell Armando how awesome they are, so he'll put it on the internet, but I'm not in a place to be a board member for any organization but my law firm right now. But with that being said, that means they are looking for board members. So if anyone hears this and wants to join, reach out. My contact information will be on this podcast.
For sure.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Back to this writing group. Super interested in knowing about that. How'd you find out about them?
I learned of them through meetup.com or whatever. So Shut Up and Write, it started in San Francisco and like not that long ago. I think it's 2006 or maybe 2010. But they're on every continent but Antarctica, and they have hundreds of member organizations. So they're all over the world. And like I said, the process is simple. It's find a leader, start a group, pick a location to meet, and hang out, write, hang out, go home. So it's really simple. And I've been going since 2018, maybe 2017. And
wow.
It's just it's part of my life. On Fridays, I go to Shut Up and Write virtually every time. So
is it virtual, or is it
no,
it's in person? During
the pandemic, it switched to virtual, and I actually quit going because I didn't want to log in to Shut Up and Write, But right. In person, it's at, like I said, at Mojo's on Ferret is where it's located.
And so, talk to me about how it goes. So the first hour, it's meet and greet, talking about your projects, I guess.
Or whatever, So a lot of times we're talking about what we're going to write. A lot of times we're just catching up. I find that group often, it has a lot of people who come every week, and almost every week there are people who've never been before. So I'm meeting new people all the time. I'm catching up with old friends all the time. It's been a really rewarding group to be a part of.
Nice. And then you write for an hour. Mm-hmm. And then do you present the work?
No, there's no feedback or presentation component to this organization. Huh. I've been in other groups where it's a workshop, feedback oriented workshop. Usually I join those a pay for a workshop to get feedback from other folks. Or I'm also currently starting a writers group with just a couple of friends of mine that we're hoping to meet regularly and share work ahead of time and give each other feedback on our writing.
Very cool, man. Yeah. So what are you writing about?
Right now, like I said, I'm working on a novel. I've only been writing short stories my whole writing life. But I realized at some point that I only read novels. I don't read short stories. So I'm reading novels, writing short stories, and it's not going well. So I am working on a novel that is going to draw a lot. I think the theme of the novel is basically going to be about the like long-term effects of experiencing like a community trauma. So like I was here for Katrina. I went to Houston when it hit. But one thing that I kind of can't help but to see is the ways in which people's lives were like knocked off course, 18 years ago as of last week, and how that tragedy's affected them over the period of decades, and I think that when we think of those kind of tragedies, we really do fixate on the experience itself, and then we kind of all move on because there's always another one, but like, what about the people who are still here, or the people who never came back, or whatever. So that's really going to be what I'm working through here. And it might just be a kind of like a narrative journal that I then close and put away, and I'm like, now I can write a novel, but like if I work through some feelings that I've been having for almost 20 years, then that's great too. I'm a lawyer. I don't need this to, be a bestseller. I don't need to get published. It's
Sure.
really for me, so
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
What are some of the qualities of your best clients?
One thing that I've actually learned as an attorney is something I think I've always known or suspected, but I truly believe that most people on like the moral scale are good people. Like really, I really believe that almost everyone who calls me is well-intentioned. Almost everyone I work with is, again, an inherently good person. Every now and again, I get someone who they want to hire someone to hurt someone else. It doesn't happen often, but I'm not your guy, and the moment I pick up on that, I'm like, this isn't going to be good for either of us. So, why don't you call around?
Because they're just trying to be vindictive.
Yeah, they've been hurt and they want to hurt back, and again, that's uncommon. But I don't act in that space. And every now and again, I've already hired the client and gotten in the middle of it, and then I have to sort it out. That's usually, again, an uncomfortable place for me to be in. That involves a lot of, offering to separate and have them find a new attorney, or trying to reel them in and help them focus. Like, you can do this, but you're going to spend like all of your money, and this is going to be your outcome, and it's just not worth it. So a lot of times the dollars and cents will ultimately work out.
Yeah.
But I would say my ideal client, again, for estate planning, it's couples with young children, or again, individuals with young children, or it's again, people who are reaching an advanced age and want to set things up while they still can. For successions, my ideal client is someone who has not waited a very long time to call an attorney. One of the biggest hazards I've encountered is that people will come to me and they'll say, my grandparents passed away and they had this property. We never opened succession, and now, my aunt and uncle have passed away, but my mom's still alive, and I kind of have to wind up showing them. I'm like, look, if you had called me, or if your parent, wouldn't have been an attorney back then, but like if your parents had gotten an attorney and sorted this out, it'd be easy. But now you're looking at opening your grandparents' succession to put your, mom and your deceased aunts and uncles who have children, and we don't know where two of their children are, and so now we have to find these people, and they're all over the country. And a lot of times what winds up happening is the costs of getting a succession done, like, approach the value of the property in the first place. And so I have to tell them, you can hire me and we can sort this out, but you'd probably be better off just losing your grandparents' property and moving on with your life, which is not what anyone wants to hear. Like, imagine like knowing that you're entitled to ownership of a home, and the smartest thing for you to do is to
let it go.
Just let it go. And so I think that happens a lot. Sometimes to really incredible degrees. Like we had one succession where I really learned some of these lessons, where the person had died over 100 years ago, and I was trying to piece it together, and we were looking at the family tree, and it was just like, I never understood how quickly those numbers add up. We were looking at like 1,700 people over the course of like 130 years. And I was just like, your interest is worth like $80, like, like this is cool land, but like we have to get through these 1,700 people. It just just don't do this, and it was like their ancestral land. It was important to them, but it made no sense, and that was just a really tough conversation to have.
Damn. Who knew, man? That's crazy. Well, look, it's 30 minutes and we're right on time. Ooh, Tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. So as Armando said, my name is Max Ciolino. I'm an attorney with Ciolino and Onstadt, and we have a website. It's www.colaw.llc. Also, our phone number is 504-524-0120. Give us a call, and we do free 15-minute consultations in our practice areas. So if you're, again, worried about successions that you might have an interest in, or if you want to talk to someone about an estate plan or anything else we practice, we'll talk to you for free and help point you in the right direction.
That works, man. Max, thank you so much for being here, man. Learned something new today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Awesome. And that was Spaghetti on the Wall, ladies and gentlemen, brought to you by Leduc Entertainment for all of your marketing, social media, podcasting needs. And you can watch Spaghetti on the Wall anywhere. You're probably listening to it right now. So keep listening, keep tuning in, and we'll see y'all next week. Thanks.